Hi guys and girls. So today I'm going to be looking at the key terms that are commonly used in assessment, especially when it comes to exams and SAC preparation. So each of these terms are pretty much just going to give a definition, and I'll give a little bit more detail about them. So when they use the word analyze, they want you to separate and pick out the main points from the information provided. They don't want everything. So there's no point putting in everything that is on, in the information provided. You just pick out the main points and you include them in your answer. With apply, they're asking you to use, implement, or put the key concepts and knowledge into practice. So they may want you to apply the theories of classical conditioning. So they want you to use classical conditioning in order to express how two concepts go together or how people learn new information. Cite, it doesn't come up as much in VCE Psychology, but I put it in anyway, and it's essentially to make reference to other materials. So essentially you're just footnoting, you're including your bibliography. Doesn't come up so much in exams, but you may need to cite things in a SAC. Compare. Now this is a big one that comes up quite a lot in VCE Psychology. To assess, measure, point out the similarities and differences between two concepts or aspects of key knowledge. When they say the words compare, you must make sure that you use the words when compared to or whereas, just so you know that this concept in comparison to this one. And they really like you to use when compared to or whereas. Conclude, most of you have seen this before, to reach a deduction based on the information and experimental results. So you're using the information found from the results and making a summary of what has actually been found in these results. Contrast is usually done in combination with compare. So you assess, measure, and point out the differences between two concepts and aspects of key knowledge. How this is different to compare is that with compare you're saying this is one topic, this is another. So you might say REM is this, whereas NREM is this. With contrast, you would say REM is this because it does this, and NREM, whereas NREM is this because it has this, this, and this. So you're actually pointing out the differences. You're not just saying one difference. You're actually given different and numerous concepts. Criticise, not so much in exams, occasionally in SACs. You need to analyse the subject and make judgments both from a positive and negative point of view. So you're saying the good points and the bad points of the research or the information or data that you found. Deduce doesn't come up as often. To arrive at conclusions and or generalizations based on the given facts. So you're essentially making a conclusion based on what you've seen. Define comes up a lot. It's one of your base questions. It might say define this, so you're giving a clear, precise, or accurate meaning of the term. Usually it is not as common. You might get one or two questions, but it's a very baseline question. Demonstrate comes up a lot. To show, explain, and describe the relevant concepts. So you're stating what it is, you're explaining what it is, and you're going into detail about how it may be used, or pretty much you're giving a lot of detail regarding this particular concept. So with demonstrate, you need to go into detail. With describe, you're giving a detailed account or information or summary outline of the key knowledge. So you're going into a large amount of detail about that concept. Discuss, you're arguing the pros and cons of a subject or theoretical issue. Make sure you have pros and cons. Usually this appears in the last couple of questions, usually the longer 10-point questions or the last couple of questions of a SAC. So you're stating the pros and cons and you're going into detail about them. Distinguish, you're naming and characterizing two concepts or aspects in key knowledge, and you're actually stating how they are different, right? So you're not just saying this is this and this is this, you're saying this is all the characteristics of normal waking consciousness, and this is all the characteristics of altered state of consciousness. You're actually outlining how they are different. Evaluate, you are judging, assessing and weighing the positive and negative merits of the concept, procedure under scrutiny. So you're actually going, okay, so this is what the good points are, this is what the negative points are, this is why it could be used. You're actually working out, should this actually be, research be conducted? You're pretty much going into depth about the positives and negatives. Examine comes up a lot. So to explore, investigate, review the key knowledge. So essentially when you get this kind of question, you go examine, you get that question and you write as much as you can about it, as long as it relates to the topic, of course. Explain is another one that comes up a lot. To give or clarify the meaning of a concept and or the reason for its occurrence. When I see explain come up, I tend to tell people to define it and then go into more detail about why it occurs or its uses, whatever. Generate, to create and produce statements based on the given information. That one doesn't come up as often. Identify does come up. You're recognizing, detecting and pointing out key concepts. You're not going into detail, you're just identifying the concepts. So you're saying, let's see, what are the two states of consciousness? You might go altered state and normal waking consciousness. So you'd say identify those two. But you're not necessarily, it might be present in a whole bunch of information and you just need to work out where it is. Illustrate comes up occasionally, more often recently. So it's to use concrete examples. They do like the diagram idea to help clarify points under discussion. So they'll tell you, okay, illustrate the sleep-wake cycle of a newborn baby. So you'd probably do the hypnogram. Interpret comes up occasionally to explain, so define, go into detail about its occurrence, and clarify the key knowledge, data, experimental results. So you'd explain what the concept is about and then go into detail about the results that back up that particular concept. Justify, you need to state why they would have come to that conclusion and give reasons or research that backs it up. Label, if you don't know how to label, I don't know if I can help you. Essentially, you're labeling a table or a graph or a chart or a diagram. They've done that a couple of times on VCAR exams where you have to label the hypnogram, whether or not it's the elderly or normal adult, or if it was narcoleptic. Yeah, it's one of those ones. I've gotten you to do that in SACs where you have to label the I or something like that. Limitations, more often than not, appears towards the end of the SAC or exam, and you're stating how it is not useful or relevant. With list, it is essentially a series of items, not necessarily in order, but you do need to list them. It's best to do it in order. You do not get extra marks for defining them, just list them. So organize, I would recommend you actually do put them in order. You actually have to. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And it's convenient and in an appropriate form, but you're not going into a great amount of detail. You're just organizing them into the step or the correct order. Outline does come up quite a bit, and a lot of people get confused by this one. So you briefly give the essential facts and points. You're leaving out the minor details. You're going, okay, this is what altered state of consciousness is. The characteristics are blah, 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 blah. But you're not actually, going into a great amount of detail. You're just giving general, dot points of it. Recognize, you identify the key knowledge and trends and patterns within the information provided. So you're just identifying, so you're stating what's important and from the information that you've found. Relate, to show the relationship of various facts, concepts with each other, to connect the present findings to the previous research. So you're relating what you have found or the concept to what you've found in the research. And this is quite prevalent in, this particular term is prevalent in the 8 or 10 mark questions, where they'll give you a research study and they'll say, all right, we would like you to relate the adolescent sleep cycle with this delayed sleep phase disorder. Right? So you would try to relate adolescence to that particular disorder, right, which has had quite a lot of research. And that's why it's important to always study the research that we've been covering in class. Research. To investigate empirically and systematically a hypothesis pertaining to an aspect of the key knowledge. We tend to do that in the investigation SACs. We do more research. This particular terminology does not appear on exams so much because you don't have an opportunity to research. State is very clear. You get straight to the point. You do not say, you pretty much just get straight to the point. Suggest, you're actually suggesting alternate theories or directions and how it could be improved for the future. Summarize, you've done this before in all of your subjects. So you're abbreviating, condensing the material into a shorter chunk in order to give the main points, right, and the main features, so that any reader will just see the relevant information. Synthesize, I've rarely seen this in Psych, to integrate theoretical information and data. So essentially you're just adding the theories into what you found in the research. It's very rarely used. Understand tends to come up. So to demonstrate a clear comprehension of the key knowledge, concepts and methods used in research. So you've shown an understanding of the topic. And that's what they are looking for in SACs and exams, that you understand the theories and can apply them. Use, you're applying the key knowledge in a given situation. And last one, with reference to. So this is pretty much saying, and this one comes up a lot, so they might say, describe sleep deprivation with reference to the circadian rhythm phase disorders. So you'd have to define and describe what sleep deprivation is, and then explain how it relates to circadian rhythm phase disorders. And that is it. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.